I want you to picture something for a second. Think about your closet or, maybe a specific folder on your computer desktop.
Oh, I think everyone knows the one you're talking about.
Right. It is the absolute graveyard of half-finished projects. Because launching a goal is incredibly fun. I mean, the intentions are completely sincere. The energy is riding high.
You buy the new notebook, you download the software.
Exactly. But then, well, the momentum just stalls halfway through. It is so easy to start and incredibly difficult to actually cross the finish line.
It's a universal frustration, really. And looking into the underlying mechanisms of that stall is our main focus today.
Yeah, and we are pulling from a fascinating stack of notes and writings by Coach Renee today, specifically exploring her insights from the Breakthrough Bulletin on mastering follow-through.
And what's really fascinating about her approach is how she completely reframes this problem. Quitting isn't about the novelty wearing off.
No, not at all.
Right. It is
Yeah.
actually about the behavioral psychology of what you do when you are left with the unglamorous work of just showing up.
Which is so hard. So our mission today is to decode that psychology. We are not doing some, motivational pep talk to tell you to just try harder.
Because we know that doesn't work.
We know it doesn't. We are going to explore the deeper cognitive mechanics of consistent action. We want to equip you with the practical frameworks Coach Renee outlines so you can stop abandoning those goals, understand why your brain is fighting you, and really build unshakable self-trust.
Because the cost of not following through, it goes far beyond just an unfinished project. The psychological toll of repeated abandonment is immense.
I want to dig straight into that guilt, honestly, because when I look at my own graveyard of half-finished projects, the immediate feeling is personal failure.
Sure.
The assumption is that I simply lack the willpower to white-knuckle my way to the end. It feels like a character flaw.
Well, Coach Renee targets that exact assumption in the text. Willpower is actually a finite cognitive resource.
Finite, so it runs out.
Exactly. If you rely on willpower to carry you through a long-term goal, you are mathematically guaranteed to fail. Every single decision you make during the day depletes your prefrontal cortex.
Oh, wow.
So by the time you sit down to work on your novel or do your workout, the tank is just completely empty. Follow-through is actually a structural practice.
Okay, structural practice. I like that.
Yeah, every time you finish something, you aren't just checking a box. You are building a track record of integrity with your own nervous system.
A track record of integrity. That completely flips the whole paradigm for me. I've always viewed goals as acquiring a skill or completing a task, not as managing a relationship with myself.
But to build that structural integrity, the foundation has to be solid. The author's first major insight focuses on the architecture of your why.
Right.
A goal without a compelling, deeply rooted reason is essentially built on sand. When the friction of a task increases, a weak foundation just collapses.
Reading through her notes, it hit me that we often confuse external motivation with internal motivation.
We do that a lot.
Because external motivation is entirely conditional. It relies on you feeling well-rested, or the weather being nice, or someone actively praising your progress. And let's be honest, those favorable conditions almost never align in daily life.
They rarely do. Internal motivation, though, bypasses those environmental variables. It operates on a completely different neural pathway.
How does that work?
Well, when your goal is anchored to a clear internal meaning, your brain stops processing the effort as a grueling act of discipline and begins processing it as an act of self-respect.
Oh, that's powerful.
Right. You are simply acting in accordance with your self-concept.
But I feel like the challenge for so many of us is finding that internal anchor in the first place.
Yeah.
We tend to stop at the surface level.
Yes, we say things like, my why is to get a promotion.
Yeah, or my why is to lose 10 pounds. But those are outcomes, they aren't anchors. And Coach Renee provides this fantastic method for digging deeper.
The micro step, yes.
Exactly. If you are struggling with a stalling goal right now, she suggests writing down 3 specific reasons completing it matters to you. And then you drop one level deeper and ask the real question, what does finishing this say about who you are becoming?
That shift from outcome-based thinking to identity-based thinking is crucial. Our brains are wired to avoid cognitive dissonance. We desperately want our actions to match our beliefs about who we are.
So it's a self-preservation thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
If you decide you are becoming the type of person who masters complex topics, well, abandoning a coding course suddenly creates dissonance. It threatens your new identity.
So it is no longer about the actual certificate. It is about becoming a person who honors their commitments. Keep that identity shift visible. It becomes your anchor when that initial dopamine rush of starting inevitably fades.
Right. So let's follow the logical progression here. You have your deep why, and you know who you are becoming, yet you still find yourself sitting at your desk, completely freezing up and doing absolutely nothing.
Oh, the dreaded freeze response. This happens to me all the time, even when I care deeply about the project. The text explains that this freeze comes directly from the gap between where you are right now and your ultimate destination.
That gap is terrifying to the brain.
Right. But I want to look at the mechanics of that. Why does the brain interpret that gap as a literal threat?
It comes down to cognitive load and how the amygdala processes ambiguity. When a goal exists only as a massive, distant destination, the pathway to get there is undefined.
It's just a giant blank space.
Exactly. And the prefrontal cortex, which handles complex planning, burns an enormous amount of metabolic energy trying to parse that ambiguity. To conserve energy, the brain triggers a low-level freeze response.
Which just looks like procrastination from the outside.
Totally. Confronted with an enormous, ambiguous task, the human mind will consistently choose inaction over risking the energy expenditure of doing the wrong thing.
It makes me think of, well, it's like trying to swallow an entire meal in one giant bite instead of cutting it up first.
Oh, you just choke.
You choke. Your system just rejects it. To fix it, you have to take it bite by bite.
That is a fantastic analogy. The choking is the overwhelm. Coach Renee's antidote to this is breaking the goal down until the task crosses a very specific cognitive threshold.
What's the threshold?
It's the point where it shifts from being computationally expensive ambiguity to an actionable dopamine-triggering step.
We all know we're supposed to break tasks down. I mean, that's not new. But the examples in the source material highlight how poorly we actually do it. Writing work on the report on a to-do list is a trap.
It's the absolute worst kind of to-do list item.
Right, because the brain sees work on and still has to calculate what that entails, which introduces all that friction again.
It demands decision-making before you can even take action.
Instead, she advises making it painfully concrete. You write, draft the opening paragraph, or instead of the impossibly vague get in shape, you define the action as, I will walk for 20 minutes after dinner on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
And instantly, the cognitive load vanishes. Your brain no longer has to figure out how to do the task. It only has to execute a simple command.
It's brilliant.
When you break a goal down far enough, every single step becomes undeniably doable, bypassing the amygdala's threat detection entirely. Progress becomes the engine of sustained follow-through.
Taking this directly to you, the listener, look at that massive goal causing your system to crash. Map out the next 5 specific actions, and these need to be concrete.
Very concrete.
They should be so clear that you could hand the list to a complete stranger, and they would know exactly what physical actions to take. Once you have that list, schedule the very first action to happen within the next 48 hours.
The 48-hour window is key. It's a deliberate mechanism to force you out of the dopamine loop of just planning and into the reality of execution.
I am totally tracking with this. I have my deep why. I am shifting my identity, and I have broken my massive project down into bite-sized pieces my brain can process without choking.
Okay, good.
But let's look at day 4. The alarm goes off, it is raining, I am exhausted, and the feeling of internal motivation is completely gone.
And that is the reality check the source material insists upon. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are transient biological states.
They come and go.
Exactly. Relying strictly on internal motivation to carry you through the full arc of a multi-month goal ignores basic human psychology. You will not always feel like doing the work.
I used to think that building an accountability system meant I was just, well, weak.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah, I viewed it as a crutch for people who lacked the discipline to just do it themselves.
But Coach Renee dismantles that misconception thoroughly. An accountability structure is not a crutch. It is a scaffold.
I love that distinction between a crutch and a scaffold. A crutch implies an injury, right?
Right.
Or a deficit you were compensating for.
Exactly.
But a scaffold is a deliberate temporary structure used in engineering. It holds your intentions in place while you do the slow, unglamorous work of building the permanent habit underneath it. Once the habit is secure, the scaffold can come down.
The engineering metaphor is perfect. The text actually categorizes this scaffolding into 3 distinct pillars: personal, social, and procedural accountability.
Okay, let's break those down.
So, personal accountability involves making the promise visible to yourself, using a habit tracker on your fridge, for example, or doing a daily internal check-in.
I found her breakdown of the social and procedural pillars even more compelling, though. Social accountability leverages our evolutionary psychology.
We are wired as social creatures to maintain trust and status within our tribe.
Exactly. When we tell a trusted colleague or a mentor that we will deliver something by Friday, we leverage that evolutionary drive not to let the tribe down. It manufactures urgency.
And then procedural accountability is where you engineer your environment to remove friction. It is the concept of environmental design.
Like putting your running shoes literally blocking your bedroom door so you have to trip over them to leave the room. You are making the desired action the absolute path of least resistance.
Yes. The objective isn't to be perfect. The objective of the scaffold is to create enough structural support that missing a day becomes a rare exception rather than your default setting.
So you just need to pick one form of accountability today to support that next 48-hour action step. Tell a friend, draw a tracker, or just block your calendar.
Moving from the tactical scaffolding into the deeper psychological core of the text is where the most uncomfortable insights live, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. Before we can permanently optimize our systems, we have to audit where and why we actively sabotage ourselves. The author poses a reflective question that forced me to stop reading and really think.
What was it?
She asks, where in your life do you struggle most with follow-through?
It's a great question because it reveals the compartmentalized nature of our discipline. People are rarely uniformly bad at following through.
That's so true.
You might be the most reliable director in your company, hitting every aggressive deadline, but you consistently abandon your personal creative projects after a few weeks.
Right. Or you might have militant discipline regarding your fitness, but your administrative tasks or financial planning are perpetually in chaos.
That compartmentalization acts as a map. It points directly to where the stakes feel the highest or where the fear of failure is most active.
When you abandon the novel you've been writing, it usually isn't a time management issue.
No, rarely.
It is an identity protection mechanism.
Yeah.
If you finish the novel, it can be judged. It might not be as brilliant as you hoped. So by never finishing it, you preserve the potential of your talent. You protect yourself through inaction.
Which perfectly sets up the author's second reflective question. What if you treated commitments to yourself like promises to others?
Oh, that one stings a little.
It does. It exposes a glaring double standard in how we operate. When a boss or a client is counting on us, the external social stakes enforce the action. We bend over backwards to deliver.
We really do.
Yeah.
But when it is a private promise, when no one else will know if we skip the workout or hit snooze, we negotiate, we delay, we quietly let the commitment dissolve.
The lack of immediate external consequence creates a dangerous loophole. But the core thesis of Coach Renée's work focuses on the invisible internal consequence.
The erosion of self-trust.
Exactly. Self-trust is eroded in exactly those private moments of choice. Every single time you negotiate away a promise you made to yourself, you are updating your brain's internal ledger. You are providing neurological evidence that your own word cannot be trusted.
The brain tracks those internal promises just as rigorously as the external ones. When you constantly break your own word, you develop a default state of self-doubt.
But the reverse is also true, and that is incredibly empowering.
Yes, learning to honor your private promises actually rewires your self-concept. When you start treating a commitment to yourself with the exact same gravity as a commitment to a high-paying client, you change your default mode network.
You literally carry yourself differently when your internal ledger proves you're reliable.
So having explored the cognitive friction, the evolutionary psychology of scaffolding, and the mechanics of self-trust, we have to bridge the gap between theory and execution.
We have to actually do something.
Right. The source material outlines an immediate real-world experiment to generate that feeling of self-trust today. It is called the completion test.
It is a brilliant 24-hour challenge. The objective here is not to tackle the most intimidating, massive project on your life's to-do list.
Thank goodness.
Right. The objective is purely to manufacture the experience of finishing. You are sending a deliberate, undeniable signal to your inner world that says, I do what I say I will do.
Let's integrate these guidelines so you can run this experiment today. First, you need to select a highly completable task from your mental inventory. Think of a project sitting at 80% done, or an uncomfortable email you have been avoiding.
It just needs to be something you can genuinely finish within the next 24 hours.
Exactly. But just picking the task isn't enough. Coach Renée points out a major trap here: rationalization. If your goal is, I'll handle the email, your brain will find a way to wiggle out of what handle actually means. You must clearly define the finish line.
Because defining the finish line removes the ambiguity we discussed earlier. You state, I will draft the email, proofread it, and press send.
A clear, binary finish line.
Right. It prevents your mind from moving the goalposts when the task gets uncomfortable. Once the finish line is defined, you have to anticipate the friction. Identify the single most predictable obstacle that usually derails you and pre-solve it.
So if you know you always abandon administrative tasks, check your phone. Decide right now that your phone goes in another room before you begin. By pre-solving the obstacle, you remove it as a valid excuse later.
Then, you set a non-negotiable time block within the next 24 hours. You place it on your calendar and protect it with the same vigilance you would use to protect a meeting with your most important client.
The final phase of this experiment is often skipped, but it is where the actual neurological rewiring happens.
The reflection phase.
Yes. After you finish the task, take a few minutes to reflect. How does the completion actually feel in your body? What were the specific, hollow excuses your brain generated to try and hold you back? Reflection is where the myelination of those new neural pathways occurs.
You have to consciously process the victory to reinforce the identity shift. You are proving to yourself that the friction was temporary, but the integrity is permanent.
As we synthesize everything from the Breakthrough Bulletin today, the author leaves us with a really powerful concluding thought. Success isn't about starting strong, it's about staying consistent.
It is so true. Our culture glorifies the dramatic beginnings, the massive New Year's resolutions and the bold public declarations.
Oh, we love a good lunch.
We really do. But the actual engine of success is profoundly unglamorous. It is the quiet, daily choice to continue executing the small steps, even when the biological feeling of motivation is absent and the conditions are imperfect.
Because beginnings are easy. They run on the dopamine of pure possibility. Consistency is difficult because it runs on the friction of reality. The people who build the lives they want aren't necessarily the most talented or the ones who never experience doubt.
No, they are just the ones who have built the scaffolding to ensure they show up again the next day.
It is a structural approach to living rather than an emotional one.
Which changes everything.
It really does. I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you step back into your day. We spend so much time waiting for a massive, life-changing overhaul to transform us into the person we want to be. But what if the most capable, trustworthy version of yourself isn't found at the end of a grand metamorphosis? What if that version of you is simply waiting on the other side of the small, unglamorous task you have been avoiding today?
A phenomenal question to carry with you.
If you found value in this conversation and want more opportunities for personal growth like this one, make sure to subscribe. You can find the subscribe links right down in the caption. We will see you next time.